Get more confidence. Get that promotion. Get moving up the corporate ladder. Get a better gig with an MBA from Mays Business School at Texas A&M University. Whether you're starting out or stepping up, now you can take your career to a whole new level with a full-time MBA in College Station and convenient weekend options at Houston City Center. Texas A&M has a program to suit your schedule. Visit mba.tamu.edu. And Giga Maggie.
Howdy, welcome to Mays MasterCast. I'm Shannon Deere, here with your magnificent host, Ben Wiggins. Hi, Ben.
Good morning, Shannon. I appreciate the kind words, the kind word.
Yes, it was just one kind word. Let's not overstate the situation.
Let's not mince words, Benjamin. It's a great day. It's a beautiful day in Aggie Land.
Yeah, the fog's burning off and it's looking pretty.
Yeah, agreed.
Today on the show, we have Leigh Johnson, who is the founder and CEO of Livication Business Group and the president of the Houston chapter of the National Black MBA Association. He is a certified Scrum Master, Agile Coach, and project manager with 20 plus years of project and team leadership experience. Leigh has led projects within the oil and gas industry, chemical, and nonprofits to streamline operations and enhance revenue performance. He is a black belt Lean Six Sigma as well, so he is an expert in that streamlining and enhancing revenue. Leigh earned his BE in chemical engineering from Vanderbilt University and an MBA from the Bauer College of Business at the University of Houston. We are excited to welcome Leigh to the show.
Yes, indeed. It's a great conversation, and we hope you enjoy it as much as we did. We welcome Leigh Johnson to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be on.
It is our pleasure to have you here. How was your weekend?
It's pretty good. My wife and I had a virtual baby shower on Saturday.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. So Saturday was obviously filled with a baby shower. We had a big old backdrop that I had to put together, like this massive 10 by 10, backdrop of a soccer goal. And then the actual shower was yesterday, and we did the shower, had somebody come and help us put everything together. But we had a mountain of gifts, literally.
Yes.
And so yesterday was a big part of yesterday was actually moving the mountain of gifts into a smaller mountain of unboxed gifts.
Yes.
And then, of course, we started the process of thanking everybody and sending cards and all that sort of thing. So it's been a busy weekend, but it's good. Good busy.
Yes, I know the feeling. My wife and I had our first last year, and you told me a couple of weeks ago that you two are expecting, but there's something about the baby shower that just makes it incrementally more real.
Mm-hmm. Certainly it does. Yeah, you kind of. But it was good because we had friends and family from all over. My family and my parents and sisters, they're in Trinidad, so they called in. My wife's family is from Louisiana, so they called in. I have friends from London who called in, and obviously all parts of the U.S. as well. So it was very virtual and very global. So
yeah, global baby shower. What's better than that?
Yeah, not much.
Tell our listeners about where you grew up.
So I was born and raised in Trinidad and Tobago. That's an island in the Caribbean. It's actually the southerlymost island in the Caribbean off the coast of Venezuela.
How many in your family?
5 including me. So I have 2 older sisters. One is 8 years older, the other is 10 years older. And then I have obviously my 2 parents, mother and father. Yeah.
What did your parents do, and how did that impact you?
So my father is a mechanical engineer. He worked with an oil company in Trinidad. He became a a maintenance manager, and then he left and started his own mechanical engineering contracting firm. So kind of looking from him and seeing the example of entrepreneurship was something that I kind of picked up from him. My mother was initially in business. Then she used to run one of the chambers of commerce in Trinidad, and then she got into politics and was then in, went up for election, won an office, won a seat, and then was in government as a government minister on the cabinet. And she was the Minister of Youth, Sport, Culture, and Creative Arts. And she's very much known for that. So,
and you mentioned, not to dive deep early, but you mentioned on our previous call how your two sisters were both popular, and obviously your mother was in government, and you mentioned that she was recognized long after she had left government. But how did that shape your own path in life?
So, I think so. Yes, both my sisters were very popular because they were older than me. I grew up being young when they were, I was a baby when they were, 10 years older and all that kind of stuff. So I always spend time with their friends, or their friends would come over and I would spend time. So they always knew me. Oh, you're Nikki's little brother, you're Nadine's little brother, kind of thing. And then, my mother was in government and in politics when I was, between when I was 9 to 14 or something around there. So those are formative years, and those formative years she was in government, and as managed, she was pretty popular. She was one of those government ministers that when she was out of power, people still thought that she was, because she was always involved in things and very, very visible. So with that, people knew me as Jennifer Johnson's son. And so for a long time, I always wanted to have my own path. I wanted people to know me for who I was, not that I was, ashamed or didn't appreciate the work and the pursuits of my family, but because they were very well known. In fact, my mother, so we had a coup. There was a military or armed coup in Trinidad, which is an armed uprising. And during that, they took members of parliament hostage for, I believe it was 9 days in 1990. And so that was during the time when my mother was in government, and my mother was one of those who was taken hostage.
Oh.
And when they eventually released the hostages, but some members of parliament, there was one that was shot. There was one who was killed, unfortunately, and then the prime minister at the time, he was actually shot and wounded as well, but he survived and made it through. And so my mother was in that group who was, who were hostages, and coming out of it, she was, I believe she was, if not the first, but one of the first to sit down and do an interview with the news media to kind of explain what happened and that sort of thing. And so people saw that, and they recognized what they had gone through. And so, so people knew my mother, and they still know my mother. So it's, it's a large shadow. But I always wanted to do my own thing, to be seen on my own virtue, and so I've always wanted to do well, so that others can see, hey, this Leigh Johnson guy is good. And coming to university in the States, and going to Nashville, and now being in Houston, I've had that opportunity to forge my own path, and to be my own person, and allow people to see me for me, and not through the lens of other folks.
Yes. Can I ask what it was, what it's like to have a parent in government taken hostage, and when people are being killed? Like, what is that? That must have been horrible for you.
It was, it wasn't, so at that time I was like 10, maybe 10, 11 or something like that. So, those things, you process them a lot differently when you're younger.
Yeah.
I knew that she was in danger. But I didn't really grasp how much danger. So one of the things I can say, my father, he is a wise man. And, one of the things that he did was that as soon as everything happened, he sent me by one of my good friends in the neighborhood, and I stayed with that friend and their family. And so instead of me being around him and seeing him worry and all that sort of thing, I was by my friend and we were just kind of chilling. So it seems a little weird, when I say it, but, I was shielded from a lot of that angst and a lot of that grief that, I might have been feeling. So, but as I think about it now and you look back and reflect, I'm thankful that she's alive, thankful that she was unharmed. And, just really, you look back and it's kind of surreal. It's like, wow, that happened. And that's the thing. It's in Trinidad, we, so obviously this happened 30 years ago, and we have a generation of folks that don't really grasp what actually happened. So I would say, to give an analogy, it'd be like if you had 9/11 deniers.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Or maybe not deniers, but at least people who didn't really understand. So the generation that is around now in America understands what happened at 9/11.
Yes.
And is fully aware of it. They weren't there, but they are aware of it. And the thing that concerns me is that in Trinidad, you have a generation of folks who are growing up not really being aware and having a full acknowledgement and recognition of what happened and why it happened. And so the thing that concerns me, obviously, is that, history tends to repeat itself if the lessons aren't learned. And so,
what do you...
is that there's learning and recognition.
What do you think is the most important lesson that they're missing from a lack of understanding of what happened at that time?
I think the lesson is that even though people are different, people have differences, Trinidad is a very multicultural society.
Yeah.
And I think that the lesson that's learned that could be and should be learned is that, even though people are different, and things in terms of economically may or may not have been going as well as people wanted them to. At the end of the day, safety and really just being a community is most important.
Oh. Okay.
And I think there are parallels that folks in America, I think, can learn, is that we do have to live together, and we do have to create a society that works for everybody, that where everybody feels empowered and has a voice, and because I think part of the issues that I see kind of helped drive what happened was that there were tough times economically, and people felt that they could have an uprising, change the government, and everything would be all right. And essentially what happened was that the folks that did that didn't really, they didn't get as much backing and, as they were expecting to get, I suppose. So everything kind of fell down after that. So, I think that's a lesson to be learned, that, we have to work harder to creating a society that, everybody is involved and is taken care of and feels comfortable. So
yes, I think one of the most important lessons that I hope we learn from 2020 is that we're all one. We're all one species. We're all one people. I think other people have different faiths than I do. I as it turns out, I happen to be a Christian. Other people are Muslim. Some people prefer, some people are agnostic, others are Jewish, or practice Judaism, and there's, it's hard for some people, I think, to understand the paradox in firmly believing in what you yourself believe in, but at the same time meeting others part way in terms of coming to understand what they believe in. And that's true from a religious perspective. It's true from an ideological perspective. It's true from a political perspective. And just kind of looking to understand others first. It's kind of like what they talk about in personal relationships. First seek to understand, then seek to be understood. And
yeah.
I hope we learn that lesson. I think we're making progress, but it's slower than I would like.
Yeah. There's a Dr. King that's often quoted as, the arc towards the moral arc towards tends towards justice, but it's long. I'm butchering that quote, but the idea is that we can and will get to where we are supposed to be as a people, but I do think it takes time and effort and progress, and yeah,
I agree with that. Give our listeners 60 seconds on your career path since Vanderbilt.
Did chemical engineering at Vanderbilt, did an undergrad in that. I graduated and went to work with Dow Chemical in just outside of New Orleans, Louisiana. With them, I worked in manufacturing as a manufacturing and production as a Six Sigma black belt. So actually became a Six Sigma black belt at a very, very young age, and worked in manufacturing production for about 7 years. Then I moved to Texas, worked still with Dow, working in their plant in Freeport, as technical account representative. So did that for 4 years. Left Dow, went and did my MBA at University of Houston. Focused on entrepreneurship and consulting. Completed my MBA and then worked with a company called Wipro. So I did projects in the Middle East, IT, oil and gas IT consulting. So I did projects in the Middle East, in UAE and Oman, then some projects here. Left Wipro, started my own consulting company here in Houston, so was doing that. And then worked with a nonprofit, worked with a nonprofit on a Red Cross project here after Hurricane Harvey. And then started working with a company called Waypoint, kind of doing agile coaching and consulting, and that's where I am now.
Fantastic. And the consulting company that you founded yourself, is that Livication?
Yes, that is Livication Business Group. Yes.
And so it's a consulting firm aimed at developing small businesses to operate more efficiently. What do you think is the most unique thing about this company that you have founded?
That I bring all that experience to small businesses. Having worked with Dow, being a Six Sigma black belt, being an agile coach and consultant, I bring a lot of big company experience. And, when I do work with small businesses, all of that gets funneled into them, So typically one of the things that I do with a client is I go through a lean canvas map with them. And, that's just, where it's almost like a business plan on a sheet of paper.
Mm-hmm.
And, the whole idea is to kind of get them thinking about the things that they need to do or would be doing, and would be capturing in a business plan without writing a 40-page, business plan, taking 2 months to do it, that sort of thing. I've done that, and it's not fun, but it's important. But, the lean canvas map helps, people really start to think, oh, what am I offering? Why am I offering it? Are there alternatives? Who do I need to, who should my target market be? It really helps, narrow in on those questions. And so, different clients that I've worked with, it's really helped them pick up things and really get going. I know I worked with a lady who has a nonprofit called Twist for Girls. Her name is Sydney Ely, and she, I kind of worked with her, using the lean canvas mapping, and really helped to kind of see that her particular nonprofit, had a very specific focus and a unique focus. But we did find a couple of competitors that she was able to study and figure out how she could provide better services or see what they were missing that she could provide. And so she's done that, and really her nonprofit has really taken off, and she's gone and done trips with the girls that she works with to Ghana and other parts of Africa, and so she's really doing well.
It's funny you say that. I find with less experienced entrepreneurs, they always want to move into places away from competitors. Mm-hmm. And I think as entrepreneurs get more experienced, they get comfortable with the idea of gravitating to places where there are competitors, or where there are at least comparables.
Right.
Like you said, people that you can study and see what the business models are, and then you can riff on what they're doing, or give it a twist or something. But mm-hmm. the idea of there's something, I guess, exotic, especially for younger people, about the idea of playing in a totally new space. Right. But I think, as you said, more experienced entrepreneurs tend to be less about, let's go dive in the ocean, and more about, all right, here are the pontoons that we're going to base our work on.
Right. Well, it's funny. I mean, I think everybody is enamored with the whole idea of a blue ocean strategy.
Right.
And it makes sense. Obviously if you can go where others haven't been, where the ocean is blue as opposed to red with all the red meat, that you can do well, you can capture. And I think, entrepreneurship has been glorified and sensationalized a bit. So you see the whole, you see Apple and you see Steve Jobs and all, that's Tesla and Facebook. You see all that, and Amazon, you see all that, and people are like, oh, wow, I want to do that. That is who I want to be. But sometimes we forget that, hey, entrepreneurship is just taking a product that somebody's doing and doing it better, and so I think you're right. A lot of times, a lot of experienced entrepreneurs will kind of figure out what they do well and just do it better than their competitors and take market share that way. And I don't think there's a right or wrong way. What I always tell folks who are getting into business, and it's the same message that I give to people who are getting into consulting, is that you have to figure out what you're good at. What are those things that you're a master at? I know Malcolm Gladwell talks about the 10,000 hour rule in his books. And, what are the things that you spent 10,000 plus hours doing? Like the Beatles, in his example in the book, the Beatles, they toured, and so they learned how to play, and they spent a lot of time doing that. And so when they got to a point when they were big, touring for them was easy because they knew how to do it. So whatever that thing is that you know how to do really well as a business or as an entrepreneur, figure out how to do that. And then as you start doing it, look to see how you can improve on it. And if that improvement takes you into that blue ocean, awesome. Just do that and do that well. If you're just improving a product that's already being, sold, but you can really offer something that's different as part of that, do that. So there's really no, right way. But I think, if you just really figure out what you're good at and then focus in on that is a very good start.
You're also the president of the Houston chapter of the National Black MBA Association. What motivates your members to want to get involved with this organization? What's their goal in joining? What do they want from their membership?
Well, as an organization, we're focused on we're focused on wealth in education, wealth creation, and really empowerment, and particularly for folks in underrepresented communities. And what I've seen from our board members, regular members who volunteer their time, what I've seen from them is just a spirit of wanting to help, wanting to be involved, wanting to see the community improve. I know for me, when I joined, I was, I'd finished my MBA. I was actually had been working in the Middle East, and then came back, and I was like, wow, okay, I'm back in the country. I need to, get involved in my community, and wanted to help. And so I saw National Black MBA as an opportunity to do that, got involved in the entrepreneurship, in the Economic Development Committee, which kind of focused on entrepreneurship, right, and kind of just built up my experience in the organization through that. Became the chair of the Economic Development Committee in 2017, and then 2019 became president. But what everybody that joins wants to help, wants to see the community better. And so with the organization, we have about 9 different committees that help do that. We have a membership committee, we have, as I mentioned, the Economic Development Committee, we have a Human Resources Committee, and Human Resources Committee does a lot of programs with students, and also with career professionals to just help folks figure out how to get ahead, how to land the job that they're looking for, how to get a job, all those sorts of things. We have, we have the Public Relations Committee that's, focused on getting the word out. We have our Student Affairs Committee, which runs our Leaders of Tomorrow program, which is a high school mentoring program where we pair individuals, working professionals from, the community with high school students. And then we also do personal empowerment sessions with the students as well. And so we call the students leaders. That's why it's Leaders of Tomorrow. And the work that we do with the leaders really helps prepare them for college, for the working world. And one of the big things we do is we have a case competition that we do each year. Yeah. And we give them like an MBA level business case, Harvard Business Review business case. Yeah. And they go through the whole process of, coming up with a solution, doing the market research, doing the financial analysis, and then presenting their solution. And what we often find, and the winning team then goes to nationals to do that for nationals. So that's like a big perk, that they get the opportunity to go and take a trip and do stuff. But what we found is that the leaders who then go on to business school, or even just go on to university in general, they always come back and they say, wow, the stuff we learned during the business competition was awesome. I was able to, be further ahead of my peers because I'd already experienced that. I'd already learned how to analyze a case. I'd already learned how to speak in front of others. So a lot of those things are tools that, we help give them. And what you find is the volunteers in that committee and we just had the national conference in September. And so we won the Education Channel Award, mainly for a lot of the work that we do with our high school and undergraduate and graduate students. And the LOT Leaders of Tomorrow case competition was like a big part of that. And so the students, the people that work with the students, they are all, there's a certain level of joy and enjoyment and sense of purpose that they feel of working with the students and the leaders.
You are also a part-time radio host and DJ. Where can our listeners find you?
I've been doing radio for the last 30 years since I was in college.
Yeah.
I started at WRVU 91.1 in Nashville. Did radio all 4 years in college there. Then when I went to New Orleans, I got into WWOZ 90.7 FM in New Orleans and did a show there with another individual. Did that show for 7 years. Then when I moved here, I spent about maybe a year or so trying to get on radio, but then I was on 91.1 KPFT.
Mm-hmm.
90.1 KPFT. I was on KPFT for a few years with a guy named Super Neil, and then we moved to 90.9 KTSU, FM KTSU. So I was on KTSU from 2011 to this year. So I say all that to say is that I'm currently not on radio, but so that's kind of like a recent change where I'm no longer on KTSU, but I've been doing radio and it's fun. It's for me, it's the release that I always needed. Because being an engineer and focus on work and stuff, that's what you're supposed to be doing. But I just really enjoyed radio, and on radio I primarily do Caribbean music. Obviously being from the Caribbean and that sort of thing, and that's what I listened to growing up and all that kind of stuff. I listen to R&B and hip hop and all that kind of stuff too. 80s music, all that stuff. But I really enjoyed being able to play Caribbean music. And what I've found is that in every major city, you have pockets of Caribbean folks, and they want to hear their music and they want to hear it on the airwaves. I think radio has changed so much, but people still like being able to go into their car and hear radio. They still like being able to sit in their office and hear radio. And I think terrestrial radio, even though it's changed, I don't think it'll die, just because there's a connection that people have to their area, and you can't get that with Sirius, FM. You can't get that with online radio. So
how does your experience as a radio host help you running your business and the other parts of your work life? It's
a reminder that in anything that you do, preparation is key. You have to be able to look and see what's out there, what new technology, what new information is out there, process it, and then share it with others. And as a business, that's what you have to do as well. There is no sitting on your laurels kind of saying, okay, I'm good, I'm done, because you can't survive a pandemic like that. You look at the companies that have done well are companies that, have adapted to the new normal, so to speak, well. Companies that have figured, okay, you know what, we're not going to be able to safely open up and have people return to an office. So how can we help our folks work from home? How can we make the environment such that it's okay for the little kids to be running in the background? How can we make it such that parents have enough time to help out their kids? So I think being able to do that research, see what's out there, and then adjust to it. As we talked about being agile, a big part of being agile is getting the voice of the customer and doing these short iterations. So you do something, you try it out, see if it works. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, figure out why it doesn't work, and then try it again. And so all those things really help.
Excellent. Before we move to rapid fire, tell the reservoir story.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I have a cousin who actually passed a few years ago, but he is about 5 years older than I am. And my parents were always, he lived with us. He would spend weekends with us, and then weekdays with our grandparents. And he was really like the brother I never had. And part of what brothers do, I can imagine, is get their younger brothers in trouble. So obviously, yeah.
By the way.
Okay, good. I'll keep that in mind for my son. But I always wanted to hang out with them and the older kids, and we lived in a residential area that had a dam or a reservoir in it, and that reservoir was known to have alligators inside, because we've seen the alligators, Right. So one day, all of us went out on a raft in the actual reservoir. And it was like a little boat. I don't know where we got the boat from. I don't know. I was maybe like about 5 at the time, so I remember very little. But we went out into the reservoir. We were in there swimming, jumping in and out of the boat, all that kind of stuff. We all knew how to swim. But we were having a ball. Somehow somebody saw and told our parents. Or told one parent, and the other one parent told the other parent. So by the time we came back home, my parents knew, and they were like so heated that my cousin would take me, my little precious Leigh, out in the raft in the middle of a thing with alligators, to get eaten by alligators and tralala. So needless to say, we both got punished. But he got double what I got. Yeah. And that became a running theme. Whenever I would get in trouble, he would get in trouble double, because he was older and was supposed to know better. Right. Yeah. So we got into a lot of trouble like that, but it was those were fun bonding moments. Well, I'm sorry you got in trouble, but I'm glad you survived the alligators. I am too, and that's fine. Let's move to rapid fire. Very briefly, what do you consider your most valuable failure? Most valuable failure was the starting point of my business. Spent a lot of money, just didn't really understand what I was doing, who I was trying to serve. And so I spent a lot of time and money trying to figure out, doing things, bought a lot of things I didn't need to buy, and then have to pay those bills, Yeah. So. What have you recently tried to teach yourself? Recently tried to teach myself something called Scrum Barn. There are Agile methodologies. Scrum is one that most people would know of. Kanban is another that most people know of. So somebody had the bright idea, let's combine them together. And so I've been reading a book on Scrum Barn, and then, was the whole intent where I was trying to use it with a client and in terms of running running a process and getting some work done in a particular way. So
we end each session with Good Bull, an opportunity to recognize someone else for something good or great they've done. Do you have anyone you would like to send Good Bull?
There are two people I'd like to, if I can. My wife, I would definitely have to say that she is handled the pregnancy amazingly well. Doing all of that, handling the baby, and still driving me, in terms of pushing me forward and helping me get things done in terms of planning and the baby shower and all that kind of stuff. She loves that and really kind of put it together. And so, and she's very, very thoughtful. So whereas I'd be like, oh, whatever, kind of thing, she'd be like, no, we need to do this. We need to recognize such and such. We need to send this thank you cards, all those kinds of things. So, so I'd say my wife, number one. And number two, my vice president of administration at National, Houston Black MBA. There was a period last year when I was working abroad. And during that period, she was able to kind of step in and help, represent the organization with different things, help keep everybody on the team motivated and getting the work done that we needed to do. And, she's been in the organization for a few years, and so she knows it well and knows the people well. And her experience has just been very useful to me. So, Leslie Lee, I certainly want to thank her. She is moving into a different role, and so, there'll be other people stepping up, but she's done a really good job.
Fantastic. Leigh, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time and your wisdom.
No problem. Thank you, Ben. I've enjoyed this.
For our MasterCast top 3 takeaways, I wanted to first talk about the revolution that Leigh shared about and the way that impacted his family in Trinidad and Tobago. I thought his takeaways from that experience were so important for us to remember as well, just that we are one and should work towards living as one. And certainly can't even imagine the impact that experience had on his family.
Yeah. The most striking part of it for me was how effectively his father protected him from the enormous stress of having a family member whose life is under legitimate threat. And I'm not sure I would have thought to do that. I would probably be inclined to keep kids close in that situation. But having heard this approach, I don't know, it's definitely something to consider. What did you think about all of that?
Yeah, I think your instinct probably would be to insulate your kids as much as possible in that situation. I think you would probably be inclined to do that. I thought there were so many important takeaways from what he said about that. Just our need to remember history and for the next generation to remember history, especially I think as we are in this pandemic and it can be the singular focus, that there are a lot of other parts of history we need to remember too through this process and continue to learn from that.
Yeah. In some ways, we are the sum of our experience as a species.
Mm-hmm.
And I shared his concern over the fact that some of the nation seems to have already forgotten what happened.
Mm-hmm.
That's the proverb. Those who don't, learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And I guess that's one of the reasons that I encourage, and I think we encourage everyone who can stand to stay informed on current events should do so. For some people, it's too emotionally stressful, and I definitely understand that. But for those who can handle it, it's important to know what's going on. And there's a wisdom that comes from that we maybe can't get anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really important.
Yeah, I agree. I wanted to talk about his use of Lean Canvas. I know you've used that. We've both used Business Model Canvas before. Those are just such great tools I want to make sure that our listeners are aware of.
Yeah.
And as Leigh said, they can be used to kind of think about starting a business. They can even be used within a business from a more entrepreneurial perspective with what that business unit wants to do. So even within a large corporation, what that business unit wants to do going forward. So it has so many excellent uses and is just a great tool for people to look into using in their different contexts.
Yeah. I think it may be particularly useful for visual learners like me who kind of have trouble getting a spatial sense of what the flow of the value proposition and the different resources that the business has really looks like. And to have a spatial model for that is so helpful. So helpful.
Yeah, I agree. And I think just the simplicity of it, that you think, oh, I've got to write this 40-page business plan. And you might eventually, or you might be able to use the business model canvas or the lean canvas. And then from there, develop out a pitch that is more like a pitch book, a PowerPoint presentation that has a lot more of those details that support the business model canvas instead of doing that 40-page business plan that no one's going to read.
Yeah. And the importance of the executive summary, of course, in all things. But I think keeping it simple is always important, more broadly.
For our last takeaway, I wanted to point people towards the National Black MBA Association, NBMA, and all the great work that they're doing, not just in Houston, but nationally. And it's a great resource. Many of our students benefit greatly from the career conference they provide nationally and from us working with the Houston chapter as well. So I hope people will look into that. It was neat to hear our vision at Mays is advancing the world's prosperity. And it seemed like their mission at NBMA was so closely aligned with that, with increasing wealth and opportunity for their members. So thanks to Leigh and NBMA's Houston chapter and national chapter for all that they're doing.
Yeah, it's really admirable, the work that they're doing. And the adjustments that they've made to the pandemic also have been exemplary. And we are all about the way that organization is indeed advancing the world's prosperity.
Ben, would you like to close us with a quote?
I would love to close us with a quote. Tell your heart that the fear of suffering is worse than suffering itself. Paulo Coelho.
Thanks for listening to the show.
Thank you for listening. We appreciate you.
An MBA from Texas A&M University can take your career to a whole new level. With full-time and weekend options, Texas A&M suits your schedule. So get a better gig. Visit mba.tamu.edu.
Looking to start a podcast? Trying to tackle questions like, how do I record? How do I edit? How can I get music for my show? What equipment do I need? How do I distribute it? Good news. The podcast architects are here to help, whether that's from start to finish, fixing the audio quality, helping you get the episodes posted. Go to podconsulting.co. Everyone has something worth sharing with the world.